timeless yoga, sharing the 8-part system that is yoga. In this session, we'll discuss the 5th and final gem in our series of talks on the yogic principles called Yamas. So these are methods for living skillfully and with authenticity. We're looking at Aparigraha today. This is the principle of letting go. It's really an invitation to enjoy life in its fullest, yet always being ready to drop everything as well, if needed. This guideline seeks to help us to release attachment, to continue to understand that whatever we try to possess ultimately possesses us. So for your own life, what are the sticking points for you in your life? Are there any beliefs, habits, behaviours, reactions, clinging or grasping, anything that you're wanting more of? Is this something that you can recognise within yourself? I know I certainly can, and it's definitely a work in progress. So these workshops or sessions are meant to be an encouragement for us, a guidance system, as the system of yoga is meant to be, as opposed to a opportunity to berate ourselves or feeling like it's a lecture. So rather than getting down on what we're not doing, we have the opportunity to really love ourselves and our shadows. And anyway, it's really only from this place of acceptance that we can honestly look within and start to work with our attachments. This is the place where we begin to soften them, to explore curiously as we progressively let go. Everything is a journey and things take time. It's really helpful for us to apply Aparigraha, a non-possessiveness or non-attachment, so that we can release those things which we probably already really know are not serving us in the long term. And one way we can purposely cultivate this particular yama into our daily life is by practicing mindfulness. And I know we've all heard about that. It's very simple. It's about being in the moment as it is, and also with our emotions. There are many different yogic techniques purposely practiced to help us to stay present. And that's part of the reason why we call a lot of those different techniques a practice, because it really only works if we do it regularly, because the mind will continually jump in with its stories and attachments. And by doing these practices, we're able to come back to our true self, to the part that is the witness, the observer. Some of these techniques include things like pranayama, various different breath focuses, that is. We also use asana, the physical poses, to help us with this mindfulness approach. And that's why they're also included in this 8-part system that makes up yoga. But for now though, let's simply bring awareness of sensations to our mind as a way of creating mindfulness. So this is, if you like, an anchor to the present moment. And we might as well try it now for a minute if you don't mind. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes, otherwise keeping them open as you wish. And simply bring your attention to your feet now, wherever they are, perhaps in shoes or thongs. Perhaps your feet are flat on the ground, or you're sitting cross-legged and the soles of your feet are up. Simply noticing that surface point of the soles of your feet. Noticing the temperature there. Any other sensations, perhaps a softness or a hardness, a coolness or a warmness. Do they feel rough or smooth? Is there any clothing in contact? Socks, shoes? And then moving your awareness to the clothing on your body, starting from your lower legs, noticing all the contact points. Scanning your way up through the body, the upper legs, around the midsection, the front and back of your torso and the sides. Noticing where the clothing stops. So is it a V-neck top that you're wearing, or a rounded neck? Maybe a high neck. Noticing, is it short sleeve or long sleeve? Is the fabric smooth or a little bit rough? Is it itchy or comfortable? Does it feel heavy or light? Noticing your posture now. You might like to imagine a line from the base of your spine to the top of your head. Like a string, just gently encouraging you upwards. And what do you notice in your body? What sensations are talking to you at the moment? And how about the temperature in the room? Does it feel warm or cool? Or perhaps the core of your body feels warm and the extremities cooler. Just observing the sensations that already exist in this present moment, without judgment. And finally, listening to the sounds around you, without the need to label them. Just simply noticing one sound, letting it go, hearing another sound, letting it go, and another, letting it go. This leads us to the breath, bringing your attention to your nostrils now. Noticing the inflow and outflow through the nostrils. Can you feel that movement? Does one nostril perhaps feel more open than the other? And is there a temperature differentiation from the inhalation compared to the exhalation? As you breathe in, can you notice some sense of expansion in the lower abdomen, the rib cage and the upper chest? And what happens as you inhale versus when you exhale? Whenever we keep our focus on the breath, we effectively create an anchor to the present moment. And that in itself, in that simple act, is mindfulness. So when you're ready, if you like, gently opening your eyes and see if you can maintain that awareness of the breath throughout the rest of the workshop. So you can see that just in a few seconds or a minute, we can easily become more present. We become more in the space that we're currently holding, and by doing so we become unattached to other aspects of our life, our thoughts, our behaviours, even our beliefs. Coming back to the Yama of Aparigraha, possessiveness or grasping, it is really just a construct of the future. How often do we disturb ourselves with expectations, with shoulds, with judgments and disappointments? These are also examples now of how we forget to be in the moment, which requires a little bit of trust in life and also in ourselves. There's a really beautiful quote that I love by Deborah Adele that really addresses the crux of possessiveness or aparigraha. She explains that, like the breath, when it is held for too long, the things that nourish us can become toxic. So aparigraha, this non-possessiveness, is really closely complemented by brahmacharya, non-excess, which we spoke about in the previous video. They work really well together in partnership and they tend to ebb and flow together. And I can give you a personal example of how this plays out in my own life. Just a reminder though, before I do that, the whole purpose of sharing these gems, these yamas, and further videos to come is hopefully for you to firstly understand the big picture of what yoga really is. So a system of living with practices available to assist you. And also to find the joy and the value and the nourishment through the application of these yamas and eventually niyamas in your life. So the whole point is to be able to help you to enhance your own well-being. Okay, so my simple example is this. I really love hiking, particularly in the Himalayas, and I go there annually, bring a group of like-minded people with me. And beforehand, I always make sure to send out a packing list to attendees. And to be honest, it really helps me also to pack mindfully. And after years of doing so, I've really been able to refine it to the bare minimum of items that still meets all our needs, including variations in climate. And the funny thing is that without fail, every year pre-trek, I sit down with all our group members and reinforce that this packing list has everything that they could need, and check in just to make sure the weight of their pack and that they don't feel there's anything else that they might want to take out of the pack before we start the hike. Maybe a book here or a journal there. And I mentioned that whilst it's quite light at this point when we're sitting comfortably in the van preparing to get to our destination, it can be very different at altitude. And so, of course, as happens every year, everyone assures me that no, they're fine, and that their packs are really good weight for them and they don't have anything extra. And then without fail, by the end of day one into the hike, there's always at least one person who realizes it's too much. They realize that yes, the third pair of pants and that favorite pair of, Crocs that they wanted to wear and that other book that they thought they'd really, really want to read. In other words, their attachments to items that are probably not really necessary are now holding them back. So luckily we have porters to assist us, which provides really necessary employment to locals. And then it's really interesting to see the next day with an appropriately weighted pack how much they express more enjoyment in the hike. It feels lighter, it feels easier, it feels freer, because they realize that all that stuff beyond the necessary didn't actually add any value to their journey. It was really detracting for them. And just the same as we don't continue to wear our backpacks when we sit down to enjoy our meal for lunch, why in life would we want to hold on to anything that isn't needed for this moment? And that's where the wisdom and gem of Aparigraha really comes into play. I mean, why would you really want that extra weight on your shoulders? And especially when you're the one who ultimately gets to choose how much you stuff in your metaphoric backpack. In other words, how much you attach to. So letting go of anything that we feel some attachment to, it can feel really vulnerable. Whether it's a really strongly held generational pattern or belief, or a job title, for example, or our self-image we have, or a relationship. The point is that to truly grow, we must fully release our grasp of the old to allow for the new. I felt this really strongly last year when I left a job. Perhaps I was even a bit overdue to do so and had no idea what I was doing next. That suspension in air can really feel like an eternity, and We want to almost go back to where we came from, even though we know that that's ultimately not helpful to us, because we have that attachment, often to the core need of certainty. And yet, just like a monkey needs to let go of one branch to be able to jump and suspend itself to swing to meet the next one, we too also need to trust. And if we ever want to grow into this principle of Aparigraha, impermanence, non-attachment, we need that awareness that whatever we cling to creates a weight and even, you could say, a maintenance issue for us. Now, we're all perfectly imperfect beings doing the very best we can with what we've got. So what? How can you apply this to your life now? Well, one option would be to choose 1 or 2 attachments that you have. Maybe set a timeline for a week. Maybe it's a habit. Something really simple like at night time after 7 o'clock scrolling through your phone. There's an attachment there, but you know it's actually not doing anything good for you, and you're certainly not in the moment. Maybe it's a belief how you should be or how someone else should be, or because things were a certain way before, they should remain the same way. Perhaps it's an attachment you have to an emotion, that when things don't go well, you have it like we all have an emotional home. Some people get sad, some people get angry, some people disengage. Or maybe it's something like thoughts that you repeat in your mind that aren't helpful. So maybe, oh, I'm not good enough, or oh, I stuffed that up again. So the next step is, once you've chosen one, and make it something small and achievable for the week, decide to release them, question them, replace them or delete them. So for example, if it's a thought, oh, I always stuff that up, you can ask yourself when you say that, what else could it mean? It could mean that I'm learning a new skill. It could mean that my concentration isn't great and I need to take a break. Could mean that I need to ask for some assistance with this task. Could mean that I need to take 5 seconds and do a short mindfulness practice. Everything has 1,000,001 different types of meaning. It's just that we attach usually only the same one, often one that's not necessarily self-serving. So you could replace it with something else. I'm learning, I'm doing the best I can. Or you could completely let it go and focus on something else. But the hallmark of growth, and indeed the yogic lifestyle, is practice. So this thing, this attachment, is an attachment because it's going to come up repeatedly. So the point is that whatever you've decided to do with it needs to be practiced. So it'll come up again and you practice it again. It'll come up again and you practice again what you've chosen. You can always also choose to focus on 3 full inhalations and 3 full exhalations to again anchor yourself into the present moment. So hopefully this video has been a bit helpful to you in your everyday life. Thank you for your time, your energy and your presence. And if you enjoyed this workshop, please feel free to follow below and join us on Facebook at Timeless Yoga. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening and go well. Namaste.